Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is a follow-up video to another video that I uploaded recently titled, Should You Invest in LVMH? If you missed that video, I will link it down below in the description box so you can check it out. And if you're not familiar with LVMH is the publicly traded company that owns Louis Vuitton as well as like 70 plus other brands. So if you are a fan of not only Louis Vuitton, but Dior, Fendi, Givenchy, if you're into lots of cosmetics and makeup, they also own Sephora. They own so many brands. And then of course, we cannot ignore the fact that they just recently acquired Tiffany & Co., the major jeweler here in the States. So now Tiffany & Co. will be part of the LVMH portfolio, which is pretty amazing. I believe it's their largest acquisition ever. So as far as I see it, LVMH is continuing to grow, continuing to balloon. Really, I had talked about in my last video about the expanding profit margins, how overall their financial performance has been just amazing over the last few years, how the stock price or their share price has been skyrocketing and tripled and quadrupled over the last few years. So all signs point towards growth, but then of course we don't know because there are lots of wild cards, right? I know that recently the Trump administration imposed some tariffs on not just LVMH, but a lot of European-based companies. And so then, of course, that's going to be a significant hit financially for LVMH to pay off those tariffs. So we don't know exactly how this is all going to go, but so far, LVMH has been performing really well. Looks like their numbers are pretty healthy and they are outperforming their competitors. For example, the Kering Group that owns Gucci and Saint Laurent and Balenciaga, they're very similar in terms of being like a conglomeration of luxury brands as well. So I would probably put those two in the same space as direct competitors. But LVMH is just going through the roof and doing some cool stuff also aside from the financial performance. So in the last video, if you watched it, you know, I was really trying to shift us from a consumer mindset to a investor mindset. And I wasn't sure how you guys would receive that because it was a slightly different angle to just talking about pretty things, right? You know, and I love to talk about pretty things. Obviously, you can see I put eye candy out here for you to just, you know, have something to look at as I talk through this. But I thought it would be an interesting dialogue to have to just incorporate some money management principles, some thoughts around investing, and just really empowering ourselves with the knowledge and the information around making wise money management decisions. So I did share some information or background on Bernard Arnault, who is the 70-year-old owner / genius behind LVMH. And many of you reached out and commented and also reached out on my Instagram on DM and asked me to share more information about him because he is a quite fascinating figure. I've been gathering some research over the last week to share with you guys. I will say that although he is an extraordinary person and he has a really fascinating background, which I will share, he has not really offered himself up to many interviews. So there's not a whole lot of information out there, at least not, you know, validated information. There's probably speculation and there's tabloids and all of that. But in terms of legitimate interviews, I could only find a couple, and some go a few years back. And then the more recent one where he is featured, this is from the November issue of 2019. So I pieced some information together and I really want to highlight the points where I think are most important or, you know, really stand out the most in terms of his life and his career. And then hopefully that will inform us as to understanding who is leading this company and whether or not, again, is it worth it to put our hard-earned money into this company aside from being a consumer and purchasing products, but putting our hard-earned money in as investors and purchasing shares. The other questions that I got were more around logistical questions. So how do I open a brokerage account? Is it free? Where do I go to do this? I don't know how to get started. What are the basics? So I will try to incorporate some of that into this video as well. And if you need more information, perhaps I will do a separate video dedicated to that topic. And I am already gathering questions just around my own money management principles because I noticed a lot of people were curious after the last video. So I am starting to take some notes and come up with a list of of what are the key principles that I live by and how do I manage my money and investments. So I'm happy to share that as well. Again, that should be a different video just because I don't want this to get super, super long and I want to keep your interest. So I have some notes with me. So you may hear some paper shuffling in the background just because I want to get all the facts straight. But it's very interesting. So there are a few quotes out there online of Bernard Arnault, and again, this man right here. And it's interesting because a few years back, he had said, what we do in our group is the opposite of the bad effects of globalization. We produce in Italy and France, and we sell to China, when usually it's the opposite. So already, this is years ago, he was thinking about how is globalization going to affect his business and the brands and the performance of his brands. And he seems to have taken great pride and paid great attention to making sure that the quality of the products stay high and that they continue to be produced in Italy and in France. Now, more recently, we know that the products are coming out of Spain as well, and there are 2 new facilities that are opened in Texas in the United States. So I don't know if he would hold firm to this quote, but still, regardless, all of the places that he's opening up manufacturing facilities is outside of Asia, and then he is selling to Asia. So I still understand what he's saying, that it is the reverse of the globalization because a lot of the items that we are purchasing do come from China, right? If you look at all the labels. So I won't get too into that topic, but I thought it was an interesting quote by him. And then he says, luxury goods are the only area in which it is possible to make luxury margins. So that is so true. It's the only area that it's possible to make luxury margins. And I talked about this in my last video. The profit margins for LVMH have been expanding continually, and that is like amazing for a business. And as an investor, that's something that you really want to look for. I think that's a great sign. As a consumer, probably not so much because we're probably paying more for our products now because for whatever the reason. I mean, if the profit margins are expanding, that means that LVMH is making more money. So another reason to consider becoming an investor because you want that money in your pocket somehow and not just kind of pouring your money and spilling your money into a brand and not having anything come back to you. That's just my thought, especially if it's a publicly traded company and we do have access and we have the right to purchase shares, then why not consider it, right? At least do the homework and see if it makes sense for us. So I had mentioned this in my last video, but just in case you missed it, Christian Dior was one of the first fashion brands acquired by Bernard, and that happened in 1985. There is a really fascinating story I can just share with you very quickly. Bernard Arnault, when he was younger, he was actually a pianist. And he is really into like the fine arts. He's actually an art collector, really interesting guy, super, super creative. He didn't make it big as a pianist, but actually his second wife is a pianist. So interesting that he wound up marrying someone who is in that art. But anyway, when he graduated from university, he wound up working in his family business, which was a construction firm. And somehow he turned that into a real estate firm. Similar industry, took over as president. So think about young guy, probably in his late 20s, early 30s, soon after university, takes over the family business, converts it to a slightly different type of business, becomes president of that business. I mean, the signs are all there in terms of like his leadership capability and his desire to, grow and be the boss, right? And then he was on a trip to New York City and he had this interesting conversation with a cab driver, and he asked the cab driver if he knew the name of the French president at the time. And the cab driver said, I don't know the French president, but I do know Christian Dior. And that really made an impact on Bernard apparently because he thought to himself, wow, people around the world don't know who the French president is, but they do recognize a luxury fashion designer. So fast forward a few years, he has an opportunity to purchase the Dior brand because they were suffering. And so, of course, he jumps on that opportunity and he owns Dior. So I feel like at the end of the day, you could say that Dior is essentially the parent company of Louis Vuitton and all the other brands because that's pretty much where it started. And then it's interesting because there's like all this corporate drama behind. I feel like they could make a movie. They could probably make like a Netflix drama series. Maybe that will happen in our lifetime, and it would be fascinating. I would definitely watch it. Because back in 1987, Arnault was asked to sort of mediate between a merger of Moet Hennessy, which is the liquor brand, and Louis Vuitton. Because Louis Vuitton at the time held the rights to Dior perfume, like the Dior fragrance group. And so the chairman of the Louis Vuitton group asked Bernard Arnault to be his ally and to kind of help him through this very sort of dramatic merger. In a twist, Bernard actually flips and instead sides with the Moet Hennessy boss. I'm not even going to say these names because they're all like French names. I'm going to butcher them. But it's just fascinating. So in a twist, he does that. He sides with the other guy and somehow becomes the chairman and CEO of LVMH when that guy resigns, like in a year's time or so. So it's kind of crazy. I'm sure there's a lot more detail behind that and a lot more drama and a lot of like, you know, not just drama, but probably some ugliness, some fighting there. But that is how Arnault became the CEO, owner of LVMH. And then from then on, it's been like rapid expansion. He's just been grabbing up all kinds of luxury brands. He grabbed up Celine. I love Celine. Back in 1988. He also grabbed up Marc Jacobs, we all know that, 97, Thomas Pink in 1999, Fendi in 2001, also DKNY. We don't really hear much about DKNY anymore, but that happened, and so many more brands. So he just like went after the brands that he wanted. And it's interesting because on one side, people position him as kind of like a shark or a wolf. And, you know, someone that's very aggressive and not someone to be trusted. You know, someone who will flip on you on a dime to get what he wants. And I could see that. And I'm sure you need to have some elements of that to be a leader of a huge global conglomeration. But there's the other side where people who are very close to him say that he is actually an artist. He is at heart just a really creative genius. And when it comes to the portfolio of LVMH, it's like he's collecting the brands that he loves. He is collecting Tiffany & Co. He's collecting, Dior. He's collecting Fendi because he believes in these brands. He thinks they're cool, creative. They add some artistic element to his portfolio. So if you look at it that way, it's sort of different, right? Because then you don't see it so much as like a straightforward business attack, although it still could be. But there is that interesting intangible factor, which is this guy just loves art and he considers luxury items, handbags, luggage, clothing, like all of that to him is art. And that now helps me to understand why there seems to be so many cool collaborations with artists, whether it's singers or painters, or there are just so many collaborations. Even with Louis Vuitton alone in the past several years or even several decades, there have been really cool collaborations and collections that have come out of those. So I do believe that he is an artist at heart, especially if you go back to the roots of him being a pianist and all of that. And he does collect a lot of art. The photographs that I found of him online, interestingly enough, he's either sitting in front of or standing in front of one of his beloved art pieces that he won at an auction or has collected over the years. So I just think he's a really interesting guy. I also think that he's very strategic because he saw the globalization way in advance, and he has actually been very meticulous about carefully pacing himself in terms of how quickly they expand in Asia, because I think he wants to maintain control over how many stores, especially, are in China. He doesn't want it to become too saturated, but he also wants to tap into the demand. So he orchestrates these moves, I think, very smoothly, and that probably contributes to the success of LVMH, right? And I had talked about this in my last video that he does have 4 grown children that are actively working in the business, and then he has one son, I believe, that is just coming out of university that I imagine will join the business. So we shall see when Daddy-O retires or steps down, if one of his children will take the reins, if they will be just as clever and creative, and will they take these risks? Will they dream big the way their dad has? We shall see. But if we look at it from an investment standpoint, I think we definitely need to keep an eye on that because he is 70 years old. He's not going to be doing this forever. And we need to have the confidence and the faith that whoever does succeed him, they will, lead this business the way, at least, in a way that is at least comparable or better than the way Bernard has been leading it. So let me see here. There was also some major drama between LVMH and Gucci. Like I said, that they're direct competitors. The Kering Group owns Gucci as well as a number of other brands that we love like Saint Laurent, Balenciaga. I feel like the Kering Group and LVMH are the most similar in terms of the fact that they are global conglomerations of multiple luxury houses, and they're both publicly traded companies. But it looks like back in 1999, Bernard Arnault actually attempted to take over Gucci. And the New York Post stated, quote, that it was the bloodiest fight in fashion. So very dramatic. But then there was some litigation, and ultimately Arnault lost. So that's why Gucci stands the way it stands, and it is not part of LVMH. It is part of Kering Group because the CEO or whoever runs the Kering Group, another French guy, he won that whole battle and he wound up with Gucci. Then more recently in 2014, there was apparently a 4-year attempt of Bernard Arnault kind of like gobbling up shares of Hermes, and who knows what he was planning to do, but then Hermes caught on very quickly, and they also, not retaliated, but they responded with some sort of defense, and they landed in court, and at the end of the day, Arnault eventually agreed to relinquish his stake in Hermes. It was about a 23% stake in Hermes, and then he called it a day and has moved on since with his life. So how interesting as consumers if LVMH wound up taking over Hermes, right? Or Gucci. I don't know. It'd be kind of a different world or a different market for us, I think, in terms of like our options and what might have happened with those brands. So there's a lot here. I'm skipping over a lot, guys, because I don't want to overwhelm with too much information, but I did want to hit on the highlights. There was some bad press in the last few years because there's like this agreement or pact. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but there was some sort of pact where a lot of the luxury houses signed on to reduce carbon emissions and just be more environmentally friendly with their manufacturing processes. And LVMH just did not sign up for that. And so he might have gotten some heat, but it's interesting because apparently Bernard Arnault or LVMH was actually the pioneer. So more than 25 years ago, they were the first and only at the time to create a sustainability department in-house that was all about checking, how they manufacture. Is it eco-friendly? Is it as efficient as possible? I'm sure they had all these like criteria that they were checking. And then also more recently, they appointed Stella McCartney as the head of, I don't know, their sustainability department or whatever her title is. So there's this really interesting partnership there. Stella McCartney, as you know, she has her own brand, own line, and she does not use any leather. It's all like vegan. It's all very environmentally conscious. So it's very interesting that they hired her to basically run that department or that group. So we'll see what comes of that. I think that's more in the recent years, and I haven't heard much since. So if you know anything about that, please comment below and share with us. I'd love to just, it's all a learning process, and the more information we have, it'd be great to share. So I did mention that LVMH acquired Tiffany & Co., which is pretty massive, and it was, I believe, the largest acquisition that LVMH ever made, and it was for $16 billion. $16 billion. That's like crazy. So we'll see what happens with that. Will that be a good thing? Will that be a bad thing? Will it be neutral? Will it not affect us in any way or the performance of LVMH in any way? I don't know, but lots of cool stuff happening, lots of questions swirling. If you know anything more, again, please comment below. I'd love to learn from you as well. And it's just a dialogue that I'd love to have with all of you. Some other brands that LVMH owns, Bulgari, Loro Piana. Oh my gosh, the most soft, luxurious, amazing cashmere comes out of Loro Piana. That happened in 2013. Also, I've been seeing a lot of YouTubers talk about Moynat bags. It's Moynat. I'm not familiar at all, but it's like an old luggage brand that's being revived or relaunched, and LVMH owns them. So Who knew? Very interesting stuff. It seems like LVMH owns almost everything now. But I just want to go back to the fact that this man here, Bernard Arnault, is this creative genius and really an artist at heart. I love that kind of spin on the story. And who knows if it's entirely true. I feel like there's always 10 different sides of every story. But I like that there's like this more meaningful aspect of all of his acquisitions, and there's more meaning behind the history and the story now versus just some dude with money that's buying up lots of brands. If he really does see all of this as art, it's kind of cool. And he had this is in one of his rare interviews, he had mentioned that he's really big on just making culture accessible to the masses. And in his mind, culture includes fashion, because fashion is also a form of art. So he's thinking it's probably easier to get people to walk into a Louis Vuitton store and admire the art and purchase those goods than it is to have random people like you and I come to some like high-end art opening or what have you. So he really wants to make culture accessible to just us, everyday normal people. And I think that's a really commendable mission or vision that he has. Here is a photo of Mr. Arnault. This was taken just a couple of years ago. This is a Rothko painting that he has collected or acquired in, over the years. He has many paintings apparently. So as you can see, he's always standing in, it seems like he's standing in front of some art whenever he's photographed. Yeah, but don't you think that's kind of cool? Like, he's a curator. He's a curator of brands. That means he's collecting, just like you and I when we say we're collecting handbags or we're collecting brands that we like. He is just doing that on a massive scale because he can. And the fact that he's making it accessible to the rest of us in a very different way, I don't know. I just love that twist. I am happy to share more about just how do we invest in LVMH if you're interested. I was so excited when JerushaCouture, if you guys don't know Jerusha, you got to check her out. She's a massive like OG YouTuber, probably one of the first to make it big in terms of YouTubing about luxury stuff. She's based out in Australia. She's got a big, bubbly, awesome, authentic personality. I watch her all the time. She's got so many subscribers. She's a total pro. But when I uploaded my last video about this, which was should you invest in LVMH, shifting from consumer mindset to investor mindset, she replied, she commented, and she shared, which was so awesome. She shared that she has been an investor in LVMH shares for the last 5 years. So how cool is that? How smart is that? She has so many LVMH products. So if she's going to spend that money, on Louis Vuitton, for example, why not, like I said, pay herself back and be invested in the company that she believes in? So when I first filmed the part 1 of this video, which was about a week ago, I had shared that the share price was roughly about $93. And as of today's filming, it's jumped already to about $97. So I don't believe in buying high, but you'd have to look at the total performance over the last year and also the trend lines over the last few years just to see if it makes sense. If you think it's going to keep going up, you may want to just jump in and buy a few shares now. I am still doing my research. I don't own any LVMH shares right now. I had gotten that question and I wanted to answer. I do not own LVMH. I am actively invested in the stock market, but I have not purchased LVMH shares yet. But like I said, I am seriously considering it, and I will probably make a decision over the next few weeks. Now, you can buy 1 share, you can buy 10, you can buy 100, you can buy 1,000. If you purchased 1,000 shares last week, you'd be up by $4,000 because it went up by each share went up by $4 in the last week. So how crazy is that? And I don't encourage buying and then selling really quickly because then you have, I don't want to get into all the financial nitty-gritty, but if you sell that quickly, if you sell within less than a year, you get hit with capital gains taxes, and your gains are not as large as if you had held on to the stock for a little bit longer. But if you want to dabble a little bit, you can try it out. I think that sometimes the best way to learn how to invest is to just experiment a little bit. Don't go crazy. Just get your feet in there a little bit and try playing around. There's no perfect way to do this. Even the professionals don't know what they're doing half the time. And I certainly am not a professional. I had a disclaimer in my last video, but I'll do it again. I am not a finance professional. I've never worked in the finance industry, but I just did my own homework and kind of taught myself along the way, and have been investing in stocks, I guess, over the last like 20 years or so. So yeah. Please let me know if you have any other questions. I will try to answer them as best as I can. I'm trying to lump the questions together so I can answer them in videos versus, one-off DMs or one-off messages, because a lot of the questions tend to be similar. I'm seeing trends. I have, like I said, received a lot of questions around my own personal money management principles and how I form those over time. So I'm happy to do a dedicated video on that. And I just have, like 3 to 5 core principles that I stick by, and that, I apply towards like debt management and savings and investing and all of that. So I can just consolidate it, because I know sometimes this kind of content can get a little bit heavy and I don't want to weigh you down with too much of it. So I'll squeeze it tight into a ball of information, and I will find hopefully the best way, the most creative way to share that information with you in a succinct manner. Before you go, I do have an announcement. In my very last video, it was about the little Gucci goodie that I received in the mail. It was like a super cute mailer that I wasn't expecting from Gucci. It's a little booklet. I'll show you. It came in here, and I had just opened it with you guys because I didn't know what it was, and turned out it was this really, really cute booklet that showcases the women's cruise collection for 2020. So really fun, really colorful, really tiny, super cute. It's like a pocket-sized booklet. And I had mentioned that way back a few months ago, I had received another Gucci booklet. I feel like they do the best mailers. It's always such a nice surprise. And it was this really large hardcover book that was this iridescent, like sky blue. It was so pretty with gold lettering, and it was all about the Gucci Marmont collection, and the pictures in there were so pretty. Like every page was just like a piece of artwork. It was so gorgeous. And I didn't ask for this. They just mailed it out to me because I'm in their database. And I had mentioned that, although it was really pretty, I didn't really have any intention of keeping it, just because I'm trying to be more of a minimalist and reduce clutter and keep things simple in my home. And I asked if one of my subbies would want it, and immediately Carol Lee responded. Carol Lee George, hi, if you're listening. She responded and said she would love it, so I mailed it right out to her. This time around, I did the same thing. I showed you guys, and I asked if anybody would be interested in this. And a number of you commented that you would want it, and I didn't expect. I thought maybe one person or 2 people would respond, but I got, I don't know, over a dozen people, and then I got DMs on Instagram. So to be fair, what I am planning to do is, since this is so small, I'm going to combine it with a few other items, and I'm going to make it a proper giveaway. So I will do a separate announcement of the giveaway. It will include this booklet. It will also include these little items from Fashion File. Every time I order from Fashion File, I get some kind of goodie. And so far, I've received 2 of these little calendars, and it's really pretty because each month has a different bag. And I won't show you, just so you could be surprised if you are the winner. And because I already have one hanging on my wall, I don't need another one. So I will include this along with the Gucci booklet. And then I think I have like 3 or 4 or 5 of these Fashion File nail filers. This is brand new. I have not touched the inside of it. It's really cute. It says, I like my money where I can see it, hanging in my closet, ha ha ha. So I will also include this. Obviously, I did not pay for any of these. These are like freebies that came from Gucci and Fashion File, and because I have no need for them, I'm happy to pass them along. And I feel like then it's a little bit more of a substantial thing to get in the mail versus just this little booklet. I am also racking my brain for a proper giveaway product that I would purchase with my own money, like I did with the Longchamp coin purse not too long ago. It just felt so fun and just really nice to be able to give away something to one of you guys, because you all have been so lovely and so supportive and just so wonderful in supporting my channel and just supporting me. So I want to keep doing giveaways. It's really fun, and I got my kids involved. They had a really great time with it. So I am looking for a proper giveaway item that I will include with these goodies. This way I can just mail one set out versus like rinky-dink, one mailer for this and one for this one. So whoever wins the giveaway will definitely get these 3, and then as soon as I come up with a good giveaway product, I don't know if it'll be maybe an SLG from Louis Vuitton, or I don't know. I'm thinking. I'm having a hard time. I guess if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. Not anything that will, break the bank, but something nice and substantial enough that if you received it in the mail, you'd be really happy and you'd enjoy using it. So yeah, I'll bundle these 3 with the proper giveaway, and I'll probably do it sometime in February, maybe closer to Valentine's Day. It'll be like, yeah, I think that would be cute, a little Valentine's Day treat for somebody out there. So please stay tuned. I just wanted to announce that because I didn't want, for those of you who reached out saying that you wanted the Gucci booklet, I didn't want you to think that I just forgot or that I'm ignoring you. I just want to be fair because I didn't expect that much interest. And like I chose a random winner, Chrissy, who won the Longchamp coin purse recently, I will do the same. It will be a random process, and probably my kids will help again, and they will help me choose the winner, and then we'll get it out to you guys through Instagram. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any other thoughts, just your feedback on this video. And of course, please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And if you haven't subscribed already, I would love for you to join the fun. And I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Till next time. Bye-bye.